So another striker is linked to the club, and again, it's another young and up-and-coming player. We will look at that. Hamza Igamane is his name. We're also going to look at the update on the Connor Barron deal. Obviously, stories still around Connor Barron, who obviously this week will hopefully make his decision as to where he will be playing his football next season. And we'll look ahead, obviously, to what is going to be an interesting week. Hopefully for Rangers, but I think a week where we've got to kind of temper the arrivals and departures hopes around the fact that the Euros obviously is ongoing, and during a major tournament, the amount of movement between clubs of players does obviously die off around major tournaments. So I think, loads of us looking for the movement out of certain experienced pros at Rangers will have to wait till after the Euros. The arrival of experienced players, I think, as well, will have to wait till after the Euros. So look, this one of the biggest needs at Rangers realistically is the need to bring in a new striker. In terms of what we've got at the moment, obviously Kemar Roof has gone from the club. That leaves us at the moment with Danilo on the books, obviously a striker who was signed for $6 million. A guy who I think it's way too early to kind of judge where we're at with him because of the fact that he obviously suffered those 2 injuries. Not injury prone. I think, if you look at the injuries that he got, both of them were as a result of awful play by our opposition. One was a smashed face from a St Johnstone player taking him out, and the other one was a bad foul by a Hearts player. So, it's not fair to say that he's injury prone. The other one, obviously, is the god-awful Cyril Dessers, who, as you all know, I do not rate. And if he ends up starting games again next season, we win absolutely jack all. So, look, I think, we do need strikers. We do need at least 2 new strikers. Obviously, there was a lot of talk around about Albion Rahmani for $6 million. 5.5 million around that from Rapid Bucharest. There appears obviously to be a bit of a hiatus in that deal, a bit of a quietening off in that process again around him. So still obviously hopes that the Rangers are looking at him still. He looks a very talented player, a very talented boy. But the latest name is a Moroccan under-23 international, a guy who is tipped to move up to the full Moroccan national team. He goes by the name of Hamza Igamane. That is his name. Here he is here. This is Hamza Igamane. Now, Hamza Igamane, Igmane plays in Morocco still. He plays for FC Rabat in Morocco. Now, I don't know a fantastic amount about the Moroccan league. I can't imagine it's overly strong. I would say it more than obviously probably compares with the Scottish league. I think, probably the Scottish league is probably stronger than the Moroccan league. But, he is a player that is tipped for big things in the future, according to reports that I've read since this link emerged yesterday in multiple media sources. He's one of the rated as one of the top 10 up-and-coming under-23 players. Again, coming from a nation that really has emerged as a top footballing force in Africa, a nation that's obviously has produced a few players. Hassam Ziyech, for instance, Ibrahim Diaz, Safani Rahimi, whatever he's called. I'm going to give up on that. I can't say names like that. But, a number of very talented Moroccan players in recent years have emerged. And Morocco obviously qualified to the semi-finals of the last World Cup. So, Morocco does appear to be developing a bit of a football pedigree there with some talented players. And it's to be hoped that Hamza Igamane is a player who will continue in that ilk. Now, reports are suggesting that Rangers have had a £1.7 million bid for him to FC Rabat accepted, and the deal will be concluded this week. It's an interesting one, a very interesting one, and really does show that Niels Koppen is looking beyond European and British markets, which is obviously, I think good news. If you look back across our transfer history over the last few seasons where it quite clearly has not worked, signing a German from the English Championship is not a great plan. Or players who are very much has-beens, or players who are very much on the downward turn in their careers, the Sam Lammers, the Cyril Dessers of this world, and Michael Beale wasted a lot of money on last season. So, look, let's find out a little bit about this young man, Hamza Igamane. So this is obviously taken from Transfer Market, which is a great source of information, one of the most reliable sources of information for facts and stats. So he's 21 years old. He is from Morocco. He is just over 6 foot. He is a centre forward. He's right-footed. He's still under contract to FC Rabat until 2026. So, look, that's the situation. That's where we're at. We'll need to pay that fee for him. In what I presume is the Moroccan First Division, or the Moroccan Premiership, or the Moroccan Top League, whatever it's called. He's made 20 appearances, scoring 7 goals and 6 assists. That's 13 goal contributions in 20, which is, very impressive indeed. To be to be 13 goal contributions, no matter what what league you play in, it is a very impressive statistic. It really is. So look, it's a positive. That is a positive. And I think it's good that Rangers are obviously looking at different markets around the world in terms of bringing in players. Overall, he's played 53% of the starting 11, played 48% of the minutes, which makes those stats even more impressive to some degree. 20% goal contribution participation as well, which again, makes those stats a little bit more impressive, given the fact that he has obviously not played a lot of football from the start. Overall statistics for this season for Hamza Igamane. 20 appearances, 7 goals, 6. That's 1 goal over 187 minutes in the Batolo Pro Inouï, whatever that is. Like I said, I presume that's the Moroccan First Division. Played over 1,000 minutes of football this season. Made 2 appearances in the African Champions League. 1 appearances in the Moroccan Cup. Overall, therefore, he's made 23 appearances, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 goal contributions in 23. Very impressive. A goal every 207 minutes. Pretty impressive. Over 1,000 minutes of first team football. It does appear that this is the mold that we're going to have to accept now that the club is looking very much at those players under 24, 25 years old. I don't know whether we will obviously be signing experienced pros. I do think there is a need to go out and get players with experience, but that does not mean signing 28, 29, 30-year-olds. An experienced professional can be 23, 24. I mean, if they've played, since they were 17, 18 and have hundreds of appearances, they've got experience there. You don't have to be old to have experience. I think that's something we do need to get our heads around as a fan base. But an interesting link. And, I think, again, it's very much a Coppen-esque link, a PSV-esque link. I mean, the last Moroccan that Coppen went and got was Sibari, who was obviously a very talented player for PSV and Morocco. And, again, a player that if Igamane can follow in his footsteps, we're obviously going to be getting a very talented boy there. So it's an interesting one, a very interesting one. And look, I think the issue you've got is you can look at statistics, you can look at facts, you can look at figures, you can look at numbers, you can look at all this as much as you want. But, I can't remember who it was said this, but you can have the best statistics in the world. But when it comes to actually pulling on this shirt, when it actually comes to running out there at Ibrox and playing in the Scottish Premier League, when it goes to actually running out there and playing in an Old Firm game, it's different. It's just different to anything else. British football has a speed, a physicality that no other football around the world has. And, like I said, you can have the greatest statistics in the world. And until you've actually played the game in Scotland or in England, you can't be judged realistically. You can't be said to be a good player or a bad player or a brilliant player. There's a lot of very talented players with unbelievable stat lines who've come to Britain to play football and, have been absolute disasters over here. You talk about, for example, Andrei Shevchenko, who's probably one of the greatest strikers ever to play the game, was an absolute disaster in the English game. Fernando Torres, to some degree, was. Juan Sebastian Veron, another fantastically talented player who was an absolute disaster in the British game. These are all players that are very highly rated, world-class talents who've won trophies, done great things for their national teams. Yet when they come to play in Britain, they just fall apart. They can't cope with the intensity, with the speed, and with the physicality. So look, it's difficult to assess whether or not this player, Hamza Igamane, will be a success until he actually plays for the club. And I think that's where we're at as a club and as a fan base at this moment in time. It was officially confirmed, by the way, moving on, yesterday that Damien Garcia is remaining with Penarol. Speaking after their latest league game, their head coach Aguirre confirmed that Damien Garcia is staying put at Penarol for at least another season. So obviously killing any hopes of securing Garcia for Rangers. I think this is a massive miss. This guy would have been a huge talent. And I think someone who would have absolutely shattered the Scottish transfer record when he moved away from the club eventually. I honestly think this is a lad who is going to have a massive future in the game. So it is a sad one. I would have loved to have seen Garcia playing for Rangers. Him and Diamande, I think, would have been a phenomenal too. But we move on. We work on the next target. I'm sure, as we've seen, the club have multiple targets for multiple positions, and that Niels Coppen has a war board, has a war room, and he has a list that he is working through in terms of bringing in the best players, best young players he can find for the club as part of this rebuild. And before I move on to talk about Connor Barron, I just want to say this. I think it's difficult at this moment in time to assess where we are in terms of this transfer business. The transfer window is just opened. We are at a stage where, the European Championships is ongoing, which will slow down the transfer dealings. We're at a stage where you can't really, draw any conclusions as to Coppen, as to Clement and their recruitment strategies, or to the board in terms of the money that's available. The time to do that will be once the window is closed and we sit and we look and we reflect on what we've brought in, what we've got rid of, what our net spend is. We look at that sort of whole thing. That's when we make the decision. And look, I don't trust this board. That I have a deep mistrust of this board in terms of their ability to back the manager, back the club, and build a successful Rangers team. I don't trust them. I really genuinely don't. But the moment I'm reserving judgment on them, I'm looking at obviously towards the end of this window and looking at where we're going to be there, and then we can sort of start to draw judgments on what we've done as a club and where we are with this board as well. So Connor Barron returned from holiday and apparently will make his decision this week as to where he will play his football. He's obviously had multiple offers from around Europe and England, and obviously Scotland as well. Reportedly, Rangers and Celtic both interested in securing the services of Barron. Teams in Italy, Sassuolo apparently are interested. The Cagliari one has died a death now after Ranieri left. Links in England and Wales as well. Swansea, Cardiff apparently linked. Coventry City, which I think is the funniest one. Why you want to join a shit little team like Coventry, God only knows. But look, at the end of the day, it's going to be a fascinating one. It does appear that the club are working hard to try and come up with an agreeable compensation package with Aberdeen. Aberdeen are due $525,000 in training compensation if he moves outside of Scotland. So if he does say go to Swansea, to Cardiff, there's other English teams linked, they would have to pay Aberdeen $525,000. Within Scotland, obviously, then the terms of that deal change. Rangers apparently are trying to work on a mutually agreeable fee between the clubs. Aberdeen obviously have got to, as much as Aberdeen clearly hate Rangers, and I think, the vitriolic hatred towards our club from other clubs around Scotland and other clubs' fans is an absolutely ridiculous point at this moment in time. I obviously have been on the forefront of things with social media in terms of TikTok, in terms of YouTube. Some of the comments that I get, which I delete, from Aberdeen fans, some Hibs fans, some Celtic fans, some, a number of different clubs. The hatred you get as a Rangers fan and towards the club is absolutely ridiculous. And I think, the pure intense dislike of our club is just getting beyond a joke now. I really do think that. And Aberdeen, obviously, fans are part of that. And the club, I think, as a whole, Aberdeen as a whole, as a club, are looking at the situation where they do obviously hate us and they will try and screw as much money out of us as possible. But look, I think the issue is this, that Aberdeen have got to be careful when it comes to compensation fees. There is such a thing as cutting your nose off to spite your face. And say if Rangers were to come in and offer, £650,000, £700,000, £750,000 training compensation fee to Aberdeen for Connor Barron, they then say, no, we want $1 million, or we want this, we want that. Then Barron decides to go to Cagliari, or to Sassuolo, or to Swansea, or to Cardiff, and they only get $525,000. They're kind of cutting their nose off to spite their face there. They're missing out on £200,000-300,000, which could be valuable, in their team rebuild, in their work that obviously their new managers are going to want to put in the transfer market. So, as much as they hate us, they're going to have to try and think, which is going to be difficult for them, I know, to think kind of logically and with a clear head about this. So, I think, whatever, if Rangers can offer, say, a little bit more than that 525,000, say 650, 700, then we're getting a bargain. Even if you end up spending 750,000 on Barron as a training compensation fee, this is a player who has the potential to really go on and be shipped on for 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 million pounds in the future, making a massive, massive profit on him. So this is where we're at, and this is what we need to be thinking of. And I think, clubs have got to kind of put aside this parochial hatred of each other when they're dealing with transfer fees, when they're dealing with buying and selling players, because you've got to kind of look at it in terms of the fact you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face. You don't want to be left with a situation where just because it's Rangers, you're asking for a stupid amount of money. It doesn't happen. Barron then says, I'm going to Swansea, or I'm going to Cardiff, or I'm going to Sassuolo. You only get 525,000, whereas you could have had 750 or 600. It's a ridiculous situation that we're in. But, that's where we're at as a club. And hopefully the Barron deal will go through this week. There's still obviously strong suggestions that he is interested in coming to Ibrox. He does want to come to a top club like Rangers. That he does want to obviously compete for trophies, play in Europe, and play in front of a big crowd for a change. Well, there we go. So that's where we're up with the Barron. Hopefully, we'll obviously that being one for this week. Don't know where Coppin is at the moment, whether he's in Mexico, Madagascar, the Maldives, Clydebank. I haven't got a clue where he is. Wishaw, Saltcoats, not sure where he is. Anyway. Look, it's a weird week. Obviously, the Euros are ongoing. So obviously England won last night. We're absolutely dog shit, just absolutely appalling. Gareth Southgate making Michael Beale look like a tactical genius, looking like the Pep Guardiola. Other results from yesterday, obviously, Holland beating Poland 2-1, which is I think to be expected given the fact that Holland are one of the favourites, and Denmark drawing 1-1 with Slovenia. There is some Rangers interest today. The 2:00 kickoff today. Romania v Ukraine. Romania, obviously, Yanis Hadji's team. Yanis Hadji is a big part of Romania's team and will play today for them against the Ukraine. Also today, Belgium, another one of the tournament favourites against Slovakia. And then, obviously, I think the big tournament favourites from me. I don't buy this. England are going to win it. I think France are the big favourites. They take on Austria at 8. So, that's what's going up today. Hopefully, Rangers can get some across the line this week. I think, it's more likely to be, again, young players, up-and-coming players, rather than experienced pros. That, I think, will come once the Euros is done and dusted. Well, guys, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. Please, obviously, drop me a comment. I'll try and catch up with your comments as much as I can today. Thank you for watching. As always, on the way out, please smash that like. And as well, obviously, remember always, we are the people.